Call the Broken Arrow City Council meeting to order. Invocation is by Pastor Scott Moore.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we come before you and we are thankful for a beautiful day today. We also ask for your blessings, your blessing on this meeting, your blessing on the people that have been called to lead the community in which we live and work and play. Father, we also ask for your blessings on the employees of our city that work so tirelessly to provide important services to us as citizens. Everything from fire and police coverage to sanitation, clean drinking water, city planning, and so many other important jobs that we often don't think about. We ask your blessings on all those who work so hard for our city. Father, we ask for tonight that you would help us as we go through the agenda to look for ways not only to fix the things that are broken, but to learn from them so that we can avoid problems in the future. We ask that you would be with citizens that may be sharing their concerns this evening to communicate with clarity and respect so as to ensure that they are accurately understood so appropriate actions can be taken to address those concerns. Father, when we act with respect and trust, even the most contentious issues can be resolved. Father, we are thankful for the opportunity to work together in such an environment for the good of your people here in Broken Arrow and for the good of all people in Broken Arrow, whether Christian or not. Father, we ask again for your blessing, for your continued guidance, and for continued excitement for what's happening in our city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilor Parks.
Roll call first.
Oh my gosh, every time. So sorry.
That's quite all right.
Roll call.
Ford,
Here.
Hootie, here. Parks,
Here.
Gillespie,
Here.
Wimpy.
Here.
Stand. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have item O that is going to be pulled for discussion. Are there any other items to be pulled?
Move to approve the consent agenda absent item O.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Roll call. All right. Item O is award the most advantageous bid to Unmanned Vehicle Technologies for the purchase of one Matrix 300 series unmanned aerial vehicle, commonly known as a drone, and accompanying equipment for the police department. Chief Barry Hill.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager. We went out to bid with 4 vendors. 7 bids were returned. This particular bid that was awarded or is being considered is $30,851 from Unmanned Vehicle Technologies. This company is out of Fayetteville, Arkansas, and we have purchased drones from the same company before with good service. We currently have 8 drone operators. This will be the first drone of this size that we have for our department. So I don't know if they have a picture up there, but it's about 4 times the size of what we had before. This particular one has some capabilities our previous drones do not. Some of those, you can see the larger ones on the right, the one we're purchasing, and the one on the left is what we have currently. We have 6 small drones. The small drones can only fly for about 21 minutes before they have to land. They can fly on low wind and no rain at all. The upgraded drone will be able to fly for 55 minutes between battery changes. It actually can fly in moderate winds and light rain. The high-grade thermal imaging on this particular unit will be able to spot persons at night, such as lost children and subjects of interest in vehicles. It has an auto-tracking feature to stay on the identified subject as it moves, either a person or a car. The improved camera will be able to read a car tag from 2 miles away and record it with video. 2 operators can sync controls over an extended flight path beyond line of sight, which is required with the current drones that we have. It also has emergency auto and land takeoff. So if for some reason we lose connectivity with the drone, it will come back to where it was launched from and land right where it was launched from. Like I said, we have 8 certified operators. spread out amongst traffic, special events, special operations team, crime scenes. And I know Widener County is researching something like this as a platform so we can share resources. So as far as a helicopter business, this is as near as you can get to having a helicopter without the expense or the maintenance. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
This isn't the type of drone you can just go down to Best Buy and pick up for $1,000.
This is a big piece of equipment. I mean, it can carry a payload, has the capability of putting a spotlight on there. What we have seen for like catalytic converters. Without something like this, it's really hard to stop the types of things. And we've used the small drones for SWAT call outs and looking for kids and things like that with thermal imaging. This is just, like the small one just on steroids. And 55 minutes on a flight time is a really good time. And the fact that it can fly in some light wind and light rain is a big, huge improvement for us.
Gets a little windy around here.
It does get a little windy around here.
I was one of the people that asked to pull it, and mainly just because when somebody sees that big price tag and they're like, I can go buy a drone, like Counselor Udi mentioned, I can go buy a drone. Why did they? But the analogy of the helicopter, this is, the kind of the next best thing without having to have.
And we have a great
that
relationship
much.
with Tulsa, and they've never charged us to use their helicopter. We have such a need for something like this on a regular basis that, we can deploy it rather quickly. And we have such large events, special events with large crowds and things like that. This is just the next evolution for us. And it's not a toy. I mean, it's a solid piece of equipment. So, and everybody is certified to the FAA to be able to fly them. So it's not like something you can go to Walmart and buy and just fly on your own.
Okay, make a motion to approve item O.
Second, maybe.
We have a motion and second. Roll call. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Item passes. Item 7A, public hearings, appeals, presentations. Presentation to City Council on outdoor warning siren upgrade project. Mr. Jamie Ott.
Evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. Spurgeon. My name is Jamie Ott. I'm the Emergency Management Director for the city. Mr. Spurgeon has asked that we bring a presentation and give you an update on where we are and where we're going as far as our outdoor warning siren project. And as y'all know, and trying to catch everyone in the audience up on where we're at, the city of Broken Arrow, we operate 56 outdoor warning sirens. And we have a map that shows the location and the coverage of those sirens across the city. And as you notice, we have those placed throughout the city to provide optimum coverage for the outdoor warning siren system. Also to provide, if one of the sirens has a malfunction and it doesn't sound, we have redundancy built into our system to help with the sound. Currently, we are using Wayland products. They're a Vortex 4-cell siren, so they have 4 horns within the siren. Those so they rotate 355 degrees. And within those horns and within the system itself, it takes a team to make this work. So within our teams, we have our streets and stormwater electricians, our radio shop team within the information and technology, and our 911 center within our 911 center. So this siren system takes many people to help maintain it, operate it, and keep it going. We do our testing March through September, first Wednesday of every month, 12 noon. And March is coming around the corner, so here in a couple of weeks, we'll do our first test. And within those 56 sirens, the voters and y'all passed the GO Bond 2018 to give us a bond issue to where we can upgrade some of our sirens. So right now we're going to try and upgrade to a Wayland 10-cell siren is what we call a 10-stack. So in some of those sirens, we're going to go from a 4-cell to a 10-cell, and that's going to be 360-degree sound barrier all the way around it instead of the horn rotating. And so one area may only hear the sound as the horn passes around. These will provide 360 degrees circumference all the way around to where everyone's hearing it at the same time. So there won't be that latency there. The ones that we are asking for the upgrade on are solar powered. And so that way we can put them in areas where it may not be available to have PSO to come in and provide power to it. So this will help us out in placing our newer ones and some of our upgrades. And with this, we're also taking part of the grant or the bond, and we've applied, we sent in a notice of intent to Oklahoma Department of Emergency Management for a grant to provide additional sirens. And so with this is being done through our hazard mitigation plan that we currently have in place and that we're using. And part of this bond, this package, this grant package, we're using is 25% of that bond to help cover the cost, our 25% share of the cost of that grant. So basically what we're doing is we're paying for, but basically 3 sirens, but we're going to get 7 other sirens to go along with those 3 with this grant. So I've just received notice this week that we've been our notice of intent. We've been approved for that. So we have we're going to start the application process with our grant. So that is presentation. Is there any questions?
Jamie, I know when you run the sirens, then you get a report after you run them to let you know if anything needs to be repaired. Will these 7 sirens, that'll make all of them be working, or do we need to replace more? Or
Well, the ones that we're going to upgrade are the ones that the team has come together and looked at the entire system. And these are the ones that we're going to replace that may have some issues. We have one that we know of that's in the backyard and it's under some highline wires, power lines. And we really want to get that moved to a safer location for our employees to be able to go up and work on them without having to work on them. But yeah, they'll be in our system. They're just going to replace some of the older ones that are there.
okay, good.
So we're going to be able to order them. Are they available right now? Can we actually get them right now?
That's a good question. With all the disasters that were going on, parts are going to be kind of hard. The utility poles that we put them on, visiting with PSO and some of our other partners, those telephone poles are hard to come by because of all the disasters and stuff that's been going on back east. They've had the tornadoes and the construction going on back east from all the hurricanes and stuff. Some parts like poles are going to be kind of hard to get. So we'll be working on that.
So this is probably really a stupid question, but I'm just curious, if they're solar powered, how does that work?
The solar power we'll use solar to have a charger on the batteries because the batteries is what activates the sirens. The solar system is going to provide a trickle charger to the batteries to keep them charged.
Okay.
So whenever we use them, we test them, the power is going to go down. So the solar system, it's just like with PSO having electricity there, they're just going to be connected to the battery charger to keep the batteries charged. It's just a lot easier. One, with the maintenance, having the solar system, and 2, again, the placement. If we place it into an area that is not really feasible to have PSO to come in and run power to them, it's just easier to use the solar system. Plus, if we do have a disaster and we lose power to that area, if we lose power, the sirens batteries aren't being charged. So if we lose power, at least we have the solar system there to at least provide a charge.
So they're
to
not
batteries.
solar powered, they're solar charged, they're
solar
battery
charged.
powered.
Correct.
Okay, because I was picturing, because I thought, what happens when the sun goes down? Most of the tornadoes seem to be at night. I'm just,
Yeah. No,
I was just curious,
Yeah.
so it's battery powered, solar charged.
Correct.
Okay.
Do you have any to follow up with his stupid question? Another question?
No, that's
No offense, Counselor. A warning device, you know what I mean? If electricity goes off, at least you know the electricity's off. You have a little bit of back, but so you've got some type of warning, say that the solar panel or something's not working on one, So it kind of alerts you that there's a problem with that particular one?
Yes, at least once a week, we do test what we call a silent test. We test the entire system. And those sirens, as we're testing them, they'll report back saying, hey, I have power issues. One of the horns in there are not working. The horn, the rotator's not working. So it'll report back and let us know that, hey, there's something wrong there. And that's when we notify our streets and stormwater team and say, hey, this siren is reporting back issues. Would you guys go look at it?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions? Discussion?
Thank you for all you do, Jamie, keeping our city
Yes.
safe. You do a
Appreciate
good
it.
job.
Thank you, sir. All right. General council business, item 9A, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of resolution number 1449. Trevor Dennis?
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Back in August of 2021, this body had adopted ordinance number 3703, closing a utility easement over at the Stone Horse 4 subdivision. The item before you is a request for a resolution to authorize us to vacate that easement. We've confirmed with utilities that we don't have anything in that easement and that we have no plans to ever need anything in that easement. We've also understood that the other utility companies have disclaimed any interest. And basically the developer wants to, I think, put a pool house or a pool, and they can't do that if there's an existing easement that's not being used by anyone. Our recommendation is that you adopt 1449. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is there any discussion?
Make a motion to approve and authorize resolution number 1449.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call. Item 9B, consideration, discussion, possible approval regarding the standard design of wayfinding signage in the Rose District. Charlie Bright?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. As we discussed last week, last year, this council voted on the budget for fiscal year 2022. And in that budget, we included $50,000 for wayfinding signage in the Rose District. Back in December, we voted to award a contract for design and fabrication of those signs to FSGS Signs. And last week, I presented some ideas to you guys, and the feedback I got was mostly everybody loved the signs. We did not like the logo that was shown and asked for a revision. Going back to the beginning, is one of our things on this was to make the signs feel like they fit into the historic part of downtown, but also give a modern flair to it. And the city manager himself pointed out to me from the very beginning we passed this project off was that one of our biggest priorities is to guide citizens to parking lots. We want to guide them to everything, but we have a big importance to get them to parking lots. So with that, we came up with the design that you see on the screen. And the goal is to keep that black feel with our poles, our light poles and everything else, with the edges that kind of match the style of our light poles and our other fixtures in the area. That's kind of why we have the frame that we do. And then we are adding the color to kind of highlight the public's attention to the public parking lots. And as was requested last week, we adjusted the logo to be the colors of the current Rose District logo. On the last page, we did include some other options that were mentioned last week. The one that just shows it in white and black. We also showed one with a couple of them with no logo at all, in case that was desired. But we thought the primary one is what you guys asked for. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Looks good.
Yeah.
I liked it before. I just wanted to be consistent with the other
Absolutely.
designs.
Looking at it,
I'm glad you brought it up because this looks so
That
good.
Yeah,
looks so
that,
much
that
I
good
agree.
color looks good.
I agree. So the committee, the first time we went through the process, the committee originally looked at it on white, and we thought it looked pretty poor on white. Since then, we went through a lot of iterations, and the sign changed to black. And I'll admit that I don't think we ever looked at that logo on black. And so I think it was a great suggestion. And coming back and doing it, I think it looks really sharp.
It is.
The color really looks good too.
Yeah.
You wouldn't
Yeah.
want it black and white, but that
It's nice.
color, you can tell it's a rose even if it doesn't look like a rose.
Yeah.
The colors of
I
it.
think the black background helps it a lot.
It's
Thank
really
you.
good.
You bet.
Make a motion to approve. Oh, were you?
Oh, I didn't mean to. There's buttons.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
So that's how that works.
Yeah. But since I did, I'll do it.
Motion approved.
Thank you.
Item 9C, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of PUD 336 and BAZ 2104. Larry Curtis.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Larry Curtis, Community Development Director. Plan Unit Development PUD 336 51 West is proposed neighborhood office, retail, commercial, office warehouse development located off of Highway 51 near Nashville Street. PUD 36 proposes to divide the property into 3 development areas, A, B, and C. Area A will be developed in accordance with the development regulations of the CG or Commercial General Zoning District. Area B will be developed in accordance with the uses and development regulations of the ON or Office Neighborhood Zoning District. And Area C will be developed in accordance with the uses developed within the CG and IL district, with one exception, that light industrial uses are limited to office warehouse only. PUD 336 and BAZ 2104 were reviewed by Planning Commission on January 7, 2022. 2 people spoke in opposition during the public hearing session on the item, and 1 email in opposition was submitted. Comments in opposition focused primarily on traffic onto State Highway 51 and getting in and out of the neighborhood with the additional traffic from the development onto Nashville. A comment was also expressed concerning the impact on property values in the neighborhood. After reviewing the information presented in the staff report, along with information presented by the applicant and surrounding property owners, Planning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 5-0 of PUD 336 and BAZ 2104 per staff recommendation. And I am here to answer any questions that you may have.
Didn't you reduce it to 2 entrances?
Yes, and that was the thing, is that the entrances originally requested by the applicant, they requested 3 onto Highway 51, and we said no to that from the staff standpoint, and Planning Commission agreed to limit it to 2 and still have 1 access onto Nashville Street. So there's most likely going to be a commercial user who will be using that corner on Nashville and Highway 51. And as always, anything on our state highway system has to be reviewed and approved by ODOT. They get the final say on that. But as presented, those 2 entrances that are on Highway 51 do meet our zoning requirements.
I know I was contacted by at least 1 person regarding the Nashville access and the concern that people might use that as an additional pass through the neighborhood. Is there any thought on that?
There is, and as a part of the development, they will be required to provide, again, when we get to the engineering phase, they may have to provide additional widening of Nashville Street. So to provide additional turn lane there on Nashville Street, so that way they can get in and out onto Highway 51 associated with that.
So technically, they won't be going through any part of the subdivision itself. They'll just go onto that main arterial street going in.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, there are 2 parcels that abut Nashville Street, with the neighborhood on the west side of that. And that was how it was originally designed and platted many years ago. And as you can see, with growth and development that is moving out east, we're now seeing both. In a couple months ago, we had the northern tract that came before Planning Commission and then was removed because they already had the zoning they needed. And now we're seeing the southern tract becoming desired as well.
Any other discussion? A motion?
I'll make a motion to approve PUD 336 and BAZ 2104.
Did you hit the button?
Hang on, I gotta hit my button. Yes.
And a second. We have a motion and a second. Roll call. All right.
Thank you.
Larry. Item 9D, we're going to skip and come back to that one. Item E, consideration, discussion, and possible approval and appointment of Joe Franco to the Broken Arrow Drainage Advisory Committee with the term expiring October 1st, 2023. Ethan Edwards.
Good evening. I thought I had a little more time. Ethan Edwards, Director of Engineering and Construction. Good to see everyone tonight. To provide a little history, on August 6, 2019, Council adopted Ordinance 3588, establishing the Drainage Advisory Committee, also known as the DAC. This committee makes recommendations to Council for expenditure of Proposition 6 funds, which Council ultimately approves. Each council member is entitled to nominate 1 appointment to the committee, and members serve a 4-year term. On October 1st, 2019, Council approved Councilor Udi's nomination of Jason Feathergill to the committee. However, Mr. Fethergill recently resigned, and Councilor Udi is recommending Joe Franco's nomination to the DAC to fill Mr. Fethergill's unexpired term, which ends on October 1st, 2023. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any discussion?
Make a motion to approve the appointment of Joe Franco to complete the term expiring October 1st, 2023.
Second. We have a motion and second. Roll call. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. Thanks, Joe. All right, there are no preview ordinances. Item 11A, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of ordinance number 3719, amending the Broken Arrow Code of Ordinances for New Orleans Square Overlay District. Hi, Larry.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Committee, I am delighted to be before you this evening. This has been 3 years in the making. This is the overlay district for New Orleans Square. As much as I would like to just go on and on about this, I will hand this over to our consultant, ADG, and that would be AJ Kilpatrick. So, AJ?
Thank you, Larry. Yeah, AJ Kirkpatrick with ADG in Oklahoma City. This is our third project with Broken Arrow, so very happy to be here. We were here, I think, in the fall and spoke to you, so we're going to keep this very brief. I'm going to keep it going at a pretty quick pace. If I slow down, don't, just do this. Okay. So this project really, that timeline shows you kind of the full time that you as a community have been dealing with in some planning study or other. So next slide is the 2019 Alma New Orleans Small Area Plan. As a reminder, ADG was a sub-consultant at Catalyst that did this initial retail study for the area. We did have some pretty major public meetings as part of that effort, and that lists some of the things that we were hearing from the general public at those meetings. The biggest takeaway is that people were really looking for someplace that was different, unique within Broken Arrow, but that also had, unique offerings and, places for open space, gathering places, and was family friendly. So go ahead to the next one. So that effort took us through to the early part of 2019. That is an image from that. It kind of gave people an image of what could be built out with some of this additional land, and if we started to do some additional infill and redevelopment of some of the big boxes in that space. So it was really just trying to get people to buy into the future before we could move on to some of these bigger steps. So next slide. Once that project was done, the staff kind of started to do more of the internal work. They started to work with the New Orleans Square Advisory Committee. They put out the New Orleans Square report, and that carried through to 2020, almost to 2021. And those were some of the strategies that came out of that. They started to do some of the tactical urbanism projects that you've seen. They started to do more event and placemaking activities. And that brings us to this next stage, the next slide here. And that green bar, I kind of split it up into two parts. There's that light green area and then the darker green. So that first part of 2020, I'm sure you know that at the same time that we were hired with Code Studio to work on the overlay district, you also hired Kimley Horn to start doing some of the initial streetscape work on that. So that green period is really the period where Kimley Horn was working through some of those initial design conversations. We were meeting with them regularly, and so that was kind of our coordination phase. Led to some important decisions in terms of where we were going to start putting some of our interventions of possible streets, that we agreed on some of the need to reduce curb cuts and do more of that access circulation management inside the actual parking lots. And then also to start to prioritize pedestrian and bicycle users and to start to leave space for pedestrians as a way to get across those major arterials. So next slide. So that brings us to today's approval. That's the cover of our overlay district document. Just as a reminder, some of our major project goals is we wanted to improve the owner's ability to redevelop. We wanted to increase the opportunity for non-auto trips to and within the district. We wanted to broaden housing options for current and future residents. And we wanted to establish a framework through zoning to guide future development. So go ahead to the next one. We've had a lot of fun with the New Orleans Square Advisory Committee. That was a charrette that your staff did. in the fall. That was right before we met with you last and presented on this. So these are just some of the things that we've done just to reassure you. We've done lots of engagement either through the advisory committee. We did some staff deep dive sessions as well, where we kind of monthly merchant meetings and updating on the progress of this project and the Kimley Horn streetscape. We also, in early 2021, we did some property owner small group interviews, and that gave us an opportunity to talk to each individual property owner about their goals for their project and maybe their history as owners and what they had hopes for moving forward. And I've been to at least 5 of the advisory committee meetings myself, including that tour in Charette, and of course the city council framework presentation that we presented before we started work on the document. So some of the takeaways, property owner small group meetings, just to reassure you that we have talked to them. We're seeing very little interest in their big box spaces. So a lot of them were turning to thinking very big. That was one of the big takeaways, is that they were starting to think about redevelopment. That was really reassuring to us that the time was right to start thinking about some of these spaces. The last thing, I'll make a really key point here, and it really drives what we talked about in some of the other areas. That last one of the owners, I did not prompt them to say this. They came up with this on their own. This is an owner of one of the plots that is one of the restaurants. He said, you must increase surrounding residential density to make these retail spaces more valuable. They understood that the tide of retail had moved to had dispersed across Broken Arrow, and this was not the same intersection it once was in that respect. And we needed to start thinking more broadly about the ways to start to mix land uses here and to make it more walkable. So that led us to the urban design framework. This is the slide that you saw from that. It was September 2nd, 2021. Just a couple of things that I'll mention here. This was a product of the advisory committee's feedback. It does build on the work that we did with Kimley Horn in terms of intersection streetscape improvements. You'll note that the buildings do orient to Elm and New Orleans. That was a big sticking point for staff and the committee. And it establishes a walkable internal street network, new open spaces and parking located in the rear. So go to the next one. So once we got your sign off on that framework, we also had an urban design framework. You'll notice that it is a slightly smaller. It does not include some of the school and church sites that we initially had. We decided that it made sense to really focus on the boundary that you see there. It tweaks the grid and open spaces to ensure development feasibility. So there's slight tweaks to what you just saw before. And to prevent regulatory conflicts, it establishes primary and secondary streets and critical intersections. Those critical intersections are the ones with the little circles. Those are not roundabouts. Those are just us saying that those are critical intersections, to be clear. And they establish transition to joining the single family neighborhoods that we are proposing, as well as those that exist around it right now. And they consider existing structures, but plan for future streets. So we were never saying we're tearing down, putting a street. So go to the next one. So this is the actual regular plan. So this is the map that resulted from all that discussion. This will be the document that your staff, the development community, will be turning to understand what they can and cannot do with their property. It translates the urban design framework, as I mentioned. Go on to the next one. So it has 4 main districts, and I'll start at the center of New Orleans and Elm. That red area is shopfront. We call it shopfront because it's really focused on getting active ground floor facades on new development. Notice that I'm saying that raises the potential of having multi-story buildings, but still keeping that retail component on that first floor. And also encourages wide sidewalks. So we're trying to, again, make this a walkable hub for your community. The next ring out, that orange, is your urban general. It still has some of that active storefront, but people can be a little more flexible in the sort of land uses they put in those first floors. So you might start to see more small office and other types of land use, but also you'll start to see more residential on upper floors in that next ring. And then the next one down is yellow. That's urban neighborhood. And that is neighborhood is a key part of that name. We're starting to shift much more into smaller residential land use types. We understand that there's single family neighborhoods that are well established. And so you'll notice that we're slowly stepping down the density that's allowed as we get down, all the way down to that last one, which is neighborhood transition, which is the very far west and south, that light yellow. Thank you for pointing that out. So that's called neighborhood transition. And so in that one, we really are focused on trying to be a good neighbor to the existing neighborhoods. to the west and the south. And it is compatible. We try to make it compatible with single-family neighborhoods and encourages walkability through engaging with the streets still, though. So go ahead to the next one. This is my last slide. So this helps drive home that we have a primacy to our streets. So those that are dark red are considered our primary streets, and development really should be focused on those first. And the secondary streets, the blue ones, are more of a supporting nature. So when someone comes in and they're trying to figure out how to orient their building, they're doing so by trying to focus first on those red streets, those primary streets. And with that, I'm going to let me just make a couple more housekeeping comments. We are aware through some of the conversations that you've had more recently that a couple of things have come up in the document. There's one specific to the width of sidewalks directly around the main intersection, wanting to make sure that's 10 feet. So we will make that change even after it gets approved today. So that's a small clerical thing we'll do. There's also been some conversations, I gather, with some of you about light pole standards throughout the district. That has generated some additional conversations with your Public Works Department about what is currently allowed with your electric provider. But we'll continue to have that conversation. And if we need to put any additional standards in our document related to that, we will do so. And I think there was maybe one other map that we'll update after today, barring any other thing that comes out of today's discussion. So with that, I'll give it back to Larry.
And I know AJ talking with the vice mayor, she also had noted that the transitional type material setbacks as a part of transitional for the neighborhood, the NT2 was showing NT1, and it was supposed to be NT2 for the transitional. So that will also be changed.
Good catch.
So that was vice mayor. So I just want to make sure that those are all in the record. So that way, whenever we do, as with our PUDs, get the final document in, that is a part of that, and that has been blessed by council as we move forward. So I will say we have a number of our committee members here who I know who are anxious to see it approved as well. But aside from that, I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone have any questions?
I just think for the those listening and hearing, this doesn't mean we're automatically going to be upheaving the neighborhood. But
Are
what
you
this
getting out
does,
there with a
yeah, I
shovel
know.
tomorrow?
Well, I
I mean-
figured Christy would be out there with a shovel.
Yes.
But what this does do is it allows people to develop things and do things by right versus and by assumption versus having to go through a lengthy process so that
Yes.
development can begin swiftly and consistently in the area.
This document actually does, as this council knows, we had the downtown residential overlay district, which was a fine document, and ADG helped us with that. But this goes way beyond that. This provides way more detailed information to ensure that those questions that have popped up with our downtown residential overlay district are answered in the New Orleans Square one. In addition, it gives us clear guidelines of, let's say I'm doing a renovation. What do I have? Do I have anything that I have to do to bring up to code as a part of the overlay district? And it clearly lines those out and provides good, clear guidance.
From my understanding, it's so precise that it actually can be used. The staff can approve a lot of this without going to the city council. Is that
Yes,
correct?
and that's what there are. That's been the goal. Just like the downtown residential overlay district, is that they will be able to come in, get a permit, and go. And
It's
so,
already approved.
Right.
yeah, and then, but if there are things that need a little wiggle room, there is specifically guidelines in there for providing administrative relief through the city manager for us to, or as designee, to be able to provide that wiggle room associated with that.
I was very impressed with the details. I got my overview this afternoon, and I mean, I don't think you left anything out. I was pretty impressed. So thank you for your hard work, and for the committee too.
Yes.
Committee members that are here, thank you for your time as well.
I feel like a lot of people have had their fingers on this document. Scott and I served on the New Orleans or Alma New Orleans committee, and it was, I mean, so many details that, because it is important to have, sometimes those meetings got a little like monotonous and it's like, oh, but I think it's important because we want to make sure that because it's the details that are important. And I'm so proud of this committee and everything that you did, and to the consultants that worked so hard. I mean, I can see this in my head. I can see what it's going to look like. And I hope as a city that we will encourage, some of those transitions, that we're wanting, some of the roads that we're wanting to make. I hope we can encourage those, the landowners to do those things. And, I love the outdoor amenity spaces. I mean, that's huge. The window requirements, the blank wall width requirement or limitations, the ceiling height requirements, because I think when you make something, you have to be 9 feet. That just kind of takes it to another level of just what we're looking for. And along with the improvements that we're going to do as a city in the intersection, having these zoning requirements, I'm just excited. I watched the planning commission meeting, and Mindy, I just love you. But I think it's so fun because, in 3 years, since I became a counselor, it's like I've been so obsessed with this intersection, and it's a good obsession. So I could be obsessed with a lot of other bad things. So this is a good thing. And I do hang out at New Orleans Square a lot. Like, you might see me there. It's kind of weird.
On a daily basis.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm there a lot. But I'm just so proud of not just, of just all of us that have served in some way, had a little, something to say about this. We all feel like we're a part of it. And as the city, we haven't had to spend, we've spent some money, but it hasn't been a crazy amount to do even what we've already done there. And just what's going to come is going to be phenomenal.
Look at all.
And Larry, thank you so much, because and your team, because y'all have, you answer so many questions, and I know you've worked your tails off on this.
I would like to point out Farhad Daroga. This was
Yes.
his project, and so we coordinated this together. And without Farhad having that institutional knowledge and help guiding us, I do want to give props to him as well.
Absolutely.
And I did make a video this past week. It's not about New Orleans Square, but I did get my roundabout, and which it's spelled all one word. I was told on the post, like I put hyphens in it, and that was incorrect.
People correct you on
For the
posts.
person that
pretty
corrected
neat.
me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I'm appeased for right now, because in Aspen Ridge we do have a roundabout in there. It goes to nothing right now, but it's still there. So,
Yes.
this is just.
It is.
I want to get up scared. I'm so happy.
It is exciting because all of this took place during a world pandemic, by the way.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
a lot's
that's true.
happened. So
that's true.
thank you. We do have one person in favor that just wants to speak on behalf of. Did you want to speak? Matt? Griffin? We like when people come in and speak in favor of items.
Yes,
so-
I'm actually here on behalf of the Broken Arrow Young Professionals. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, my name is Matt Griffiths. I'm the Civic Engagement Chair with the Broken Arrow Young Professionals. The Broken Arrow Young Professionals have reviewed and support the proposed New Orleans Square overlay. We believe many Broken Arrow residents will benefit greatly from it. The overlay provides several items that have been proven to attract and retain young professionals in other communities. Aside from the points made by the New Orleans Square Advisory Committee regarding the overlay, the Broken Arrow Young Professionals would like to highlight some points that directly affect intergenerational young professionals ranging in age from 18 to 40 in the city of Broken Arrow. Increased modern housing options that include popular styles such as townhomes, duplexes, and flats, walkable neighborhoods with businesses and retail accessible to a growing number of young residents who are choosing not to drive a car, and the opportunity for young entrepreneurs to take advantage of innovative business ideas and growing mixed-use developments. The Broken Arrow, the Broken Arrow Young Professionals would like to emphasize the numerous opportunities the overlay gives for mixed-use developments. Recent studies from Architect Magazine show over a 60% increase in the number of intergenerational young professionals choosing to live in mixed-use communities over the past 3 years. For the growing number of young people not driving vehicles, mixed-use developments such as the ones that could be developed here would negate the need for a car because enhanced amenities such as exercise studios, shared workspaces, restaurants, and retail services would all be within walking distance and would draw many young professionals to what could become the next big mini center, New Orleans Square. We ask the City Council consider passing the proposed New Orleans Square overlay.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 3719.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Roll call. Motion passes.
How about that?
I just have to smile because there were people 3.5 years ago that said when we were going to do these things that we were crazy.
Yeah, I know.
It was fun. We know this ain't going to work.
I didn't say.
No,
You know-
there were some.
There were some.
You know, for all to remember back 40 years ago, whenever the city council talked about this was actually the center of Broken
It
Arrow.
was, yeah.
And they said it was going to be the center of Broken Arrow, and how it was going to grow. Then all of a sudden it grew, and then it started not growing. So I appreciate for them that with our input and with everybody's input, everybody working at it, it looks like it's really going to grow
Yeah,
and be a
bring it
center
back
of
to life,
Broken Arrow.
yeah.
Exactly.
Well, let's not forget that number one council awarded contract last meeting to put sidewalks in for connectivity.
Right.
And we're getting ready this summer to go out to bid for the road improvements, which will be several $1 million worth of improvements to the public that the voters approved in 2018. So this is coming in increments, just like the council talked about, is we're going to do this in phases and stages, and it's actually happening. And there's been so much private investment that has happened in the interim, which is, I felt like what would happen once the city started putting a focus on there. So thank you to the council for the direction, fortitude, and risk that you've taken to make this happen.
Absolutely.
I'll move for the emergency clause.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Roll call.
My face is going to break from smiling. So happy.
Motion passes. We're going to go back up to item 9D, consideration, discussion, and possible approval to suspend the temporary moratorium for rezoning PUD and specific use permit applications.
Well, council, as you have approved the overlay district and approved the emergency clause, that is the ordinance that is now in effect in the city of Broken Arrow. And so with that, staff requests that you discontinue the moratorium in effect for New Orleans Square.
We already have a motion.
I
Sorry.
wondered about that when I saw that you weren't, you know what I mean? That was going to be not in effect here for at least a few minutes and didn't want to give any opportunity, but then you didn't even give that few minutes opportunity.
Could have had an application submitted. We don't know.
I second the motion.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Motion passes. Good job, everyone. All right, remarks and inquiries by governing bodies. I will say I just flew in today from Florida. Our varsity cheerleaders did not bring home a national championship, but they are 6th in the nation, and I'm very proud of how hard they worked. And so they did a fantastic job, and I just wanted to mention that. And I also wanted to thank our city crews for the snow removal. They did outstanding. We had a resident that actually went on a radio interview and talked about how great our the city of Broken Arrow's city crews did, and then Rocky's team put together a really cool TikTok that showed we understood the assignment. So I just had to point out, if you haven't seen it, it's on the city Facebook page. So
I'd also point out the difficulties that our sanitation crews had in collecting the trash, but then notwithstanding that, successfully got it all collected. Scheduling was fun, I know, but thank you for making sure that we kept the trash out of the streets as well as the snow.
yes, thank you, Jerry. Anyone
I
else?
would like
Oh,
to read the 8th Amendment. The 8th Amendment is excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. That's a good one. And I heard a quote this week that I thought was really good as we're talking about learning more about just the Constitution and what our country is about, that ignorance is a dangerous luxury.
Ooh, that's a good one. All right, remarks and updates by city manager.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Mr. Council. I have two things I want to mention. First off, with respect to the Chamber's Young Professionals Group, I met with the Chamber President, CEO, Matt, and Vince Snelling about a week and a half ago just to talk about the involvement of the young professionals in more of what's going on in the development of public policy for the city. Obviously, council is trying to be as inclusive as possible of all generations in terms of making sure that the traditions that we have in Broken Arrow continue. And a part of that is involving the young folks that are here are moving into our community. And I would like to ask the council, as we start to create new committees, look at new initiatives. I mean, you've basically taken the position, we're going to create a committee. It's going to stay in existence as long as we need it. Then it's going to go on down the road. As we start to look at new committees, is that we work with the chamber and ask the young professional to have someone from the young professionals be a part of that. Even if for example, the council picks somebody for a committee, my appointment, if that's what you choose, might be that person. I work with Jennifer to have someone come on there, because I really think that it's important to have them involved as a part of our development of recommendations to the council going forward.
That's
I
great.
agree.
That's a great way to get them involved.
And then secondly, is at the last meeting, I mentioned that I wanted to provide the council with an update on the Bells Amusement Park. And so I want to take this opportunity to share with you what we knew previously and what we know today, if I can, Mayor. Okay. Back in November, there was an announcement that there was going to be a 4-phased amusement park. There's been a lot of discussion in the public and at this meeting about exactly what's going to be developed, if anything's going to happen. What we do know so far is that a professional engineering firm was hired, Poe & Associates, a local firm, and they have done some preliminary engineering design work, for the project on behalf of the developer, just very preliminary, mainly focusing on what I would call an outer road that would connect the project from 71st to 81st, as I understand it, what would be required, obviously, to move traffic. We also know that Rural Water 4, which, as council knows, primarily has jurisdiction on the east side of County Line Road. They were contacted about water service, and then we subsequently were notified about the possibility of the city actually servicing a portion of that property or that site, or it could be a combination. It could be the city could do it, or it could be a combination of what they would serve. And there's only been some preliminary discussions, so there's really been nothing memorialized, but there has been some conversations amongst the engineering company on behalf of the owner of the property. About a week or so ago, I received an email from Carl Rice. He's the president of the Santa Cruz Seaside Company. That's the entity that invested in Broken Arrow, that purchased the property, and is in the process of making that transition to where their company will own the property. They were made aware of the property through the Bells family. They've had a long time being in the amusement park business. Seaside and Bells have been in relationship in terms of just being in that business and that industry for probably decades. And he mentioned today, we had a Zoom call today, that they've been watching, probably mostly passive for the first 10 years, the fact that Bells closed, but have in the last few years have started to look at this area. Could it support an amusement park? After talking to Mr. Rice for about an hour today, and there were several folks that were on the call, he basically shared with us that, first and foremost, they have not made a decision on how they're going to develop the property. He said, in fact, that property could or could not include an amusement park. It could be a combination of a mixed use with an amusement park. That's something that they're still working on at this time. He said that they plan to slow the process down, because before they go forward to determine exactly what they would like to develop there, they want to work with the city and the EDC to do the markets analysis, all the studies that demonstrate what could that property support with our community growing, what would be, in their opinion, the best use. He did say they do plan, they're not going to invest halfway across the country and then not eventually develop the property, but they do plan on development, but they want to look at all the options before they make a final determination. And he said that they're, just like I've been saying for 4 months, they are nowhere near submitting, prepared to submit an application for any type of development. He confirmed that today. So what we're going to do going forward is I asked him to work with Jennifer Rush and Jennifer Conway, our economic development team, from this point going forward. And anytime he has questions, if he needs any data regarding our community, traffic counts, market analysis, homes being built and so forth, to work with them, and they would decide how we would gather that information for him so their company can make that analysis. He did not provide any timeline on when they would submit an application. He just said that they plan on developing the project and that Jennifer Rush or Jennifer Conway will keep us posted, and I'll update the council. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we are tabling the executive session. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to, we're tabling
We're
it,
tabling.
or
Yes.
no, we're not going to consider it? Okay, then I'd make a motion to table the executive session.
Do you need to make a motion? Or can we just table
If
it?
you can do it without objection, or if you want to do a motion, you certainly can do that. Either way is fine.
We need another 2 weeks, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, I made a motion, so it's on the table.
I'll second. I'll second your motion to table.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. Roll call?
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Curtis.
Trying to catch
up. Computer's slow and I'm slower.
We're tabling the table.
All right,
There you go.
thank you, sir.
Somebody built this man table.
So
Now we need a
motion to.
We adjourned now.
Almost, John.
So now
Now we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Maybe.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call? We are adjourned. Call the Broken Arrow Municipal Authority meeting to order. Roll call?
Ford,
Here.
Udi,
Here.
Parks,
Here.
Gillespie,
Here.
Wimpy.
Here. We are going to pull items C off the consent agenda for discussion. Are there any other items to pull?
Move to approve the consent agenda absent item C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call? All right, item C, approval of and authorization to execute a professional consulting agreement with Black and Beach Management Consulting for the Solid Waste and Recycling Department study.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Jerry Schubert, Director of Solid Waste and Recycling. And I do have a presentation. It's going to be brief, though. The item before you this evening is contract to hire a consultant for a rate study in the amount of $41,400. There's a couple of items that are going on within the solid waste discussion, and we want to just make sure that everyone is aware of that are relevant to this rate study. Next slide, if you would, please. So the items are these four. Where we are with our waste disposal contracts, and I'll get into those in a second. Well, what has changed and what the model will do for us when we hopefully approve this, and then what we need now. The discussion tonight is really about the two issues, the rate model consultant, and the other is the rate itself. So next slide, if you would. All contracts for waste disposal expire on 6/30/22. So that's for the garbage disposal at the waste management landfill, which is the quarry, and the other is for waste energy at Covanta. Covanta is currently charging about $13 and some change, 77 cents a ton, and waste management is about $26.17 a ton. We anticipate some changes there, so we want to make sure that you're aware of what's going on. Next slide. So what has changed? Covanta was involved in an acquisition. In June of 2021, Covanta noticed all of the disposal contractors of its intention to not renew or extend its current agreements. Now, we brought this up to council a few months ago as well. This isn't a surprise, but now we have a little more detail and we want to keep you apprised of what's going on. In December, Covanta was acquired by EQT Infrastructure. Covanta began discussions with the city of Tulsa and the TIR board to contract a new rate. Tulsa hired an outside vendor to complete an evaluation of the facility to help identify a new cost per ton for what it would cost to dump material at that facility. The rate was substantially higher. The new rate will more than double the cost of disposal at Covanta. On top of that, Covanta needs an influx of revenue to cover capital costs for an aging infrastructure. So next slide, if you would. Pardon me. So what the model that we're talking about tonight will do. The item before you tonight will consider all these changes and help us build a rate model for the service we provide to the customers. The city has not updated its rate model in approximately 15 years. So it's going to be a little bit shocking, I'm sure, when we build it. Next slide. What we need now is, for this evening, we need the approval so that we can have that rate model contract. That is with Black & Veatch. They're also doing the wastewater and water rate studies as well. So they're familiar with the city. And then I need to make sure that there's an awareness that the rates will change and that we will need a temporary adjustment while the new rate is identified. This will be expected during the budget discussions. So I'm not asking for it this evening, but it will definitely be coming. The rate model contract is $41,400. That's for the study this evening. The current $1,550 will need to be discussed in the next budget cycle to cover the cost of the doubling of tonnage charges, regardless of where we take the material. Prepare for a new waste disposal contract to be brought before you sometime in June before it expires. But what we can expect is that we are never going to see $13.70 again. And knowing that those rates going up and almost doubling, we're going to have some probably some immediate relief and then some permanent relief as we build the rate model. And the last slide is the hardest one for me. So everybody got a lot of good news tonight with New Orleans Square, and I really appreciate the prayer, by the way, because I really needed that one, because I knew that I was coming to you tonight with some tough decisions. But I wanted to make sure that you were well informed, and Mr. Spurgeon and Mr. Schwab wanted to make sure that all of the detail and the information was presented to you so that you had it in advance of what can be some tough decisions as we move forward. So, any questions?
So it's probably the Covanta and the landfill are two places that we decide now. Will that probably still be the only two areas that we can decide on where we're going to take that? I mean, we're not talking about recycling here. We're talking about the
no. And
solid.
this, so I'm completely honest with you. This would have happened regardless of whether we were talking about recycling or not. When the rates double, you're going to get a rate increase.
And I saw from when we visited Covanta that they really needed to invest money in that facility there. They had several boilers shut down because they were leaking.
That's correct. And the freeze we had the year before really illuminated some problems within that operation.
Right.
The initial contract with they actually used Black & Veatch and GBB to go through this facility and do a study to see what it would cost. The initial charges were about $35 million in upgrades, and Covanta came back with a total of $42.8 million in upgrades to the facility to bring it up so that it can last for another 10 or 15 years.
I'm concerned Covanta won't be an option at some point.
We do too.
We are
Councilman.
too. So those
I think we're basically
conversations
looking
are
at
being
having-
had at the city management level. Mr. Spurgeon and Mr. Schwab and budget and Norm, everybody, we're sitting down and we're having those conversations. Their interest is to make sure that you're in on those conversations as well, so that we know, you know what we know, so we can plan for it.
And I mean, I think we have to start looking at even more creative solutions, because just sticking our trash in a landfill is not the solution.
So one of the things that is actually a bonus to the waste management landfill, and I just had a conversation with them this morning, is that they are going to be looking at a waste to energy process themselves that has to do with taking the landfill material and turning it into a biodiesel as it's decomposing and selling it to American Airlines, so American Airlines can actually run on clean fuel. So we may actually be helping the region, whether we know it or not, through the use of a landfill that's already got that kind of technology in place. And they're using these types of operations in other landfills as well to do RNG and biodiesel projects. So we may actually come out ahead on this, that we'll have some other use of the material other than just, degrading in a landfill.
Or not, when you
Yeah.
consider styrofoam and other stupid stuff we keep producing.
True.
Mayor, I have one point, and then I have a question for the authority, I should say, is that when the authority member, Councilmember Udi, is correct, is that Covanta may or may not be around, and what they're asking us to do in real simple terms is they're wanting the city to contribute to the capital improvements, renovations, based on how much tonnage we contribute to Covanta. So if we did go there hypothetically, I have a question about if we could legally give money on property to do improvements that we don't own. Okay, but let's say legal works through that. We would have to raise our rates by a certain amount to cover the debt service, our portion of the debt service to do the renovations, in addition to the increase that is going to be necessary to be able to dump or to take our waste there. So in essence there, that increase would be two parts in addition to just normal operations. So you're right, we're going to have to look at other solutions, and the other solution is the landfill, especially to hear that they may be doing something that's sustainable. So I'm just letting you know, is what we're looking at, is that even possible? And what is the risk if the city would do that versus if we were to take it our other options? And one of the reasons why I wanted this rate study done is because, we have a brand new department, and we made the determination about a year and a half ago that it was time to have our own solid waste and recycling department. We have 37,000 customers approximately, and as you know, we're growing. So this rate study is actually going to look at several things, and I want Jerry to kind of break it down quickly about what it's going to look at more specifically.
The specifics, and thank you, Mr. Spurgeon, the specifics really come down to operating costs, capital improvements within the operation itself, and then you have, in the operating costs, you obviously have labor and all of that. But then on top of it, you also have what's going to be our dump rate. And wherever that goes, it's going to be substantially higher. So as we build the rate model, we also have to look at things that are fluctuating. There's a lot of X factor when you're building a rate model around solid waste. Fuel is an X factor. If it goes up or down, that affects us. The tonnage charges, we can contract and get those rates to where they need to be. And then the way I like to build contracts is put in a set rate increase so that I know what that contract looks from the day we start it to the day we end it. But a lot of jurisdictions like CPIs can be kind of unreliable. So I'm asking for both so that we have something we can work with. And then on top of it, you have the other X factors like how much tonnage do we have? So this year it's almost 41,000 tons. What if we have a great recycling operation and we manage to take 5,000 or 6,000 tons out of that waste stream? So now we have less to work with. That's a bonus to us because we're not dumping it. But it is also kind of a two-edged sword because that material then costs us for processing. So no matter what, we're going to be looking at increased costs around all of these X factors inside that. And that's why you bring in a consultant, because the consultant does nothing but look at all of those numbers and tell you exactly what it is, what it looks like. It's very challenging.
And they'll take into consideration the wear and tear on our trucks going out there, all the loads, and
Yes.
we weren't considering the cost of fuel skyrocketing.
No.
I mean, all of that. So
We've been blessed. We lived in an area where the fuel was very low.
Yeah.
I was just in the place we will not name just a few weeks ago.
Never.
And it was $5.11 a gallon.
Yeah.
And I raced back here. It cost me a lot, but I raced back here because fuel is outrageous. So we've been blessed.
Could we ever have our own
Well, that's
Waste
one of the things we
management.
need to look at is we could look at a transfer station, which that could be a part of this discussion because there could be some synergies and some savings by actually having a transfer station and allowing other communities this area to basically bring it to our station, and then we could take it to wherever we are. So yes, absolutely.
Well, and that's one of the things that the Met has been looking at as well.
Yes.
I mean, because it's already set up to allow for interagency communication and working through, and has established a community model. So that's actually something that the Met's budget committee and the Board of Trustees is looking at as well. So we can perhaps leverage multiple communities into one place, thereby deferring some of the cost among our partner
And I
communities.
watched you at the Met meetings working on behalf of our jurisdiction and others to work us towards those goals.
Well, and
So I appreciate it. I appreciate the forward thinking. I really do.
so will this consultant, I feel like their number one priority needs to be figuring out how we can become more self-sufficient in Broken Arrow with this. Because, I mean, it seems like all of our conversations are leaning that way. I mean,
If we're being
so-
smart about it,
I
then
mean,
they
I
should.
love the composting that we talked about but what bothers me is if we're going to be investing in their capital, I mean.
I'm not
and
recommending
then,
that at all.
you know, and then
Neither am
not-
I.
Yeah.
And
I think
then
Mr. Spurgeon's dead on.
later, ending up having to spend our own money, to build something on our own.
You're thinking what we are because
It's-
what I want to show you, and you're right on, Vice Mayor, you're right on the point here, is that when we're looking at the rates, what you're going to see is that if we did invest in Covanta, what the rate would be for the capital improvements we'd have to make and the tonnage disposal, 41,000 tons, $13 a ton could be $25 a ton.
Right.
Okay. That doesn't make a lot of good financial sense for us versus taking it somewhere else. And then if we were going to invest that kind of money, would be to do our own type of facility that we could actually have a lot more control over the costs, as well as offer that service to the surrounding communities. They could bring their waste and then we could transport it and then basically charge them a cost to do that and probably reduce their costs as well.
That's what I'm thinking, because I mean, let's face it, we probably have more money than some of these other communities that are also having to transfer their waste. And if we can be closer and offer that service, I mean, it's a win-win.
Yes, it is.
Well, I'm certainly not going to vote to send public dollars to a private company who has, by result of deferred maintenance, now requires us to send them private money.
Yeah. I think Trevor would
I
have
am
a problem with
never-
that as well.
I'm never actually going to bring a suggestion to you that we support gift of public funds. And that in some cases, that's what it feels like. So I totally agree. Mr. Spurgeon's dead on. He understands this and has said, make sure that we are very clear. This is investing our dollars in something that we have no return on doesn't make sense.
Or control over. I mean, we
Yes.
can make sure that we're maintaining it and not getting in the position that we are right now.
Agreed.
Well, and as I said earlier, that didn't surprise me because the recycle committee talked about that in the meeting in here after we visited Covanta, about how in disrepair that it was. So I do think that the recycling, depending on what we do with our bulk trash, but the recycling definitely has to help the more that we can get people to recycle. And my question would be, is that back? I know it's supposed to be back online now. Has it successfully gone back online?
Oh, so the big question, right? So the facility itself will be back online at the last week of February, first week of March. They
Okay.
were supposed to be online the 14th, but the
knew that.
snowstorm put their electricians out. They couldn't get in, and so they didn't do the work. And so that gave them the 3 days of no work. They're not like sanitation. We get out there and we get back and pick it up.
Our
right?
sanitation does.
Yeah, our sanitation, we pick it up. They did not. So now they're playing catch up.
So I'd feel a lot better looking at all this if we did have that successful, you know what I mean, going into that.
Absolutely.
So another couple of weeks, that will be.
That's what they're
successful.
projecting. And I'm on them every week. Robert, the gentleman who runs that facility, is texting me on a regular basis. I think I've become an annoyance, but that's okay. It's for our city. We need to annoy them a little.
Why don't you text us whenever you get it online?
I think I'll let Mr. Spurgeon go ahead and do that for you.
Well, let
But I
us
will
know.
definitely be celebrating it. I
Let us
guarantee
know
you.
when that
Yeah.
happens, because we keep thinking it's happening, but it hadn't happened yet.
It just keeps on getting pushed back and back. I mean, it's always, I mean, I get the snowstorm, but seriously, wasn't it supposed to happen like in January, 8th, in
It
December?
was supposed
Yeah.
to happen in
Yeah.
January.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
all, that was.
It was
initially.
the last week of December is what we
Yeah.
expected.
Exactly.
And then it was January, and then it was February, and I keep shrinking every time I have to come up here. and
Well,
tell
I don't
you.
have any more room in my recycling bin, so I don't want to send it to the landfill. So I
Met.
need- yeah.
That's what we keep
Well,
telling.
I
everybody.
understand, and I do
And
that.
I've been making runs to the Met myself because I agree with you. It's not something I want in the landfill. So,
All right.
okay.
Well, do we, so what do we need to do? Because it sounds like we all want to like look at do our own thing. And the consultant that you're doing is just looking at the rates.
They're looking at the rates, but part of the rate model discussion is going to be around what do we want in that model?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So we will add things like talking about what does it look like if there's a transfer station? What does it look like if the rate is $48, not 25? You have to build contingencies. And the best part about this particular rate model versus the one I've dealt with in the past, I had to have a consultant who did everything in that rate model from the time I hired them until the time I left, because it was so convoluted. I couldn't understand it myself. They had the Excel spreadsheets was 25 in one workbook. This group is actually going to build something that we can adjust ourselves and then have discussions around how we make those adjustments. So I'm really impressed with the company that we've chosen. And that really comes down to we picked somebody for water and wastewater who knew what they were doing. And God help us, we ended up with somebody who also knew solid waste. So that worked out very, very well.
We used Black and Beach for years. I mean, they did the last rate model study. I mean, this
They're
is
an
nothing.
excellent company, and they came to us with a lot of knowledge.
Let me follow up on Authority Member Ford's comment. I think what we're going to have to do, because first thing he said was the contract ends June 30th of 2022. This rate model study is going to take a while.
Yeah. Yes,
Approximately how
well,
long?
August, I think, is when we'll actually see the first drafts.
So what we're going to have to do, I believe, probably in March or April, we're going to come up with an interim rate that we're going to need, and we're probably going to have to either extend that contract with whoever we choose, the recommendation, whatever the authority chooses, for a short period of time, or we can negotiate a really good rate and get a longer contract if we wanted to go. So those things we're looking at right now, but there's probably going to be a need for an interim increase in order to cover the cost of disposal that allow us to basically get through the contract expiring and maybe extending it or actually a new contract, and then come back to you in the fall with the results of the rate model and have those discussions, probably special session, and then council give the authority give direction on how we want to go forward.
And I think the rate model does need to include both a regional approach, an individual approach, whether that is some sort of trust that already exists, or whether, I think it needs to be a very broad look, not just centric on one thing.
No, I believe options are supposed to be on the table for you to consider. And then city management will say, these are the ones that we really like. Now let's take it to you and look what we think. And here's what we suggest. And now what would you like as the authority?
All right.
Okay. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Jim.
much, folks.
Thank you,
Thank
Jerry.
you.
I'll make a motion to approve item C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. All right. There are no public hearings, appeals, presentations, recognitions, or awards. No general authority business. Remarks and inquiries by governing body members. Any?
Well, I know you already said it, but they did do a great job during the snowstorm, even though they had some hurdles to get over. So
did
thank
indeed.
you for that for sure.
Yes. All right. Remarks from city manager.
No, ma'am.
We have no executive session.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. Or do we? Yes. Roll call. Motion passes. We are adjourned. That's it. No.
Economic
One
debate.
more
Beta.
meeting.
What? Oh, yes. I was like, we're done. I'm ready to go home. Sorry. I'm tired.
Let it be
Yes.
said.
Okay. One more. Call the Broken Arrow Economic Development Authority to order. Roll call.
Ford,
Here?
Udi,
Here.
Parks,
Here.
Gillespie.
Here,
Wimpy.
Here. I was wondering why nobody was getting up and leaving. That's what's happening right now.
you can go. I'll be in charge.
I'm going to stay. All right. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion and second. Roll call. Motion passes. Remarks by governing body members. City manager,
I have none.
there's no executive session.
Motion adjourned.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Roll call. Okay, now we are adjourned.
Now people are moving.
It was tabled to March 1st.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean,
It was on consent. Yeah.
so what happened?
Have a good week. Rest of the week.
Yeah, so A through B was all approved.
Yeah. Yes.
See you, Larry.